Welcome back to Radio Taiwan International. You're listening to Geek Out. What's your cup of tea, tickles your fancy, or floats your boat? Join us as we share passions from people in Taiwan and around the world. I'm your host, Michelle Cheng, and today in the studio we have our very own Phil Leskovsky.
Hello, hello.
So, what are we geeking out about today?
I think we're gonna go for music and learning musical instruments.
Yes, that's something that both Phil and I have a bit of experience about. I mean, I'm not a pro musician, but...
Neither am I.
So I figured we should start with our very different childhoods. I myself grew up in a Tiger Mom household, Asian, stereotypically so. My mom started me on the piano. Mm-hmm. Actually, she asked me first, what instrument would I like to play? Why don't you take a guess which one I wanted to play?
You wanted to play. I would go... Well, now that I heard ukulele, something stringy.
Yeah, I actually wanted to play the guitar first and foremost because, you know, when you look at bands and stuff, the coolest person is the guitar player. So I was like, yeah, definitely guitar. My mom was like, no, piano. So I started playing piano when I was like, what was that, 4 or 5 years old? And I kept going all the way through high school until I graduated. And I actually don't regret it now. Because the piano is a very versatile instrument. Learning to read music and learning chords on a piano keyboard actually is kind of like a music theory gateway to a lot of other instruments. Like if you know how to play the piano, that's how I taught myself the ukulele. Because you know one, you know the other, more or less.
Right. It's related,
right?
for
it's
sure.
It's very, very closely related. So you, on the other hand...
I have not played any musical instruments. And I was never
None.
pushed or anything. No, I don't know why. It's just we had too much freedom, and there was what's the opposite of tiger childhood, you know? Tiger mom.
Were you like a latchkey kid? Were you just like allowed to roam wild in the streets?
Yeah, just biked around at very young age and just knew every street of my... It's cool, but see, here's the thing. Like, once I look back, I wish I had 18 years ahead of like an instrument, and now I could apply the skill and just develop it way more in depth.
But you know... If I had 18 years of guitar, it would have been very different from a piano because a piano you cannot carry places.
That's why I picked the guitar.
Right. After, when did you start the guitar?
About 7-8 years ago.
Okay.
When I was in college.
Okay. Well, you cracked a joke in the office earlier where you picked up the guitar when most of us are kind of dropping our childhood instruments, right?
Exactly.
You started in...
That was somewhere around 20, 23, 22, 23 years old, somewhere there.
Cool.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I love piano. I feel like it's the most beautiful instrument since you can really express like inner emotions and all that on your own, and it's also very suitable in a band.
True.
So for me, number one was always piano.
Right, especially if you move towards keyboard, right?
Right. But then you brought up a good point. You cannot take piano anywhere.
Nope.
It's just there. I mean, you can have a keyboard, but still, there's no acoustic keyboard, right? From what I know.
There's a huge difference between the sound of the piano setting on a keyboard and an actual piano. Right. I was a little spoiled. My parents had a very nice Yamaha when I was growing up, so I was very like sound snobby. It was, and the college, when I went off to college, the college pianos were just not okay. Gross. But guitars are the same, are they not? There's a huge difference in sound. Well, first of all, what kind of guitar did you play?
Started with the acoustic that we had at home because, you know, you didn't have to invest anything. I just brought it and just for beginning, like, since I don't know how to do stuff, like I don't want to touch or come across any like expensive instruments because there's just no skill matching that, so I wouldn't even dare. But like I started with a regular acoustic, just
was it
anyone.
Steel string or nylon?
Steel string.
Okay.
Very good question. Okay, yes. So that hurt a bit in the beginning.
Dude, I was going to say, like when I started with the ukuleles normally don't take, they never take steel strings. There's all nylon strings. Right. But man, it hurts. So I can't imagine trying to learn on a steel string guitar.
Yeah, it was painful the first, but you get used to it, and then you gradually look around and you switch to, well, I did to electric guitar. Yeah. And then you kind of just alternate between both because there's just so many like variations and like you can play around with the sounds and like your horizon gets expanded. Like, it's not just the easy chords anymore.
Yes. So electric guitars, I don't have to tell you listeners because you guys probably have heard some kind of music at some point. Like Phil said, are extremely versatile as instruments as well. So how long did you play the acoustic and then you moved into electric?
Honestly, there was a friend who gave an electric guitar to me.
Oh, that's very generous.
It's very generous, yes. So that's when I kind of made a switch. I mean, I had it in my head to like plan to buy one at some point, but it just appeared. So that was the time. And it was about, it was the fate who brought, 2 years later, I would say, after I started.
Cool. So you actually had a good base of guitar skills already learned on the acoustic, because I hear they're quite different. I have not personally played either.
I feel like electric guitar is easier to press and like to maneuver.
Okay.
And you go way above, like way to the, higher amp on the fret.
Yep.
So like you can play higher notes, whereas in acoustic it's a bit difficult. And also acoustic and electric frets are not the same length.
Oh, really?
Like they have more fret.
Thank you for explaining, because, for the laymen who are listening, including myself, so an acoustic guitar, it's just the instrument itself. There are now acoustics that can plug into an amp.
Right.
But for the most part, when people play, they're not plugged into anything. They're just playing. And so the sound that you are creating or amplifying in the body of the guitar is created by the strumming, which is the strings pressed against the fret, the bars on the fret. So if you are at all not pressing hard enough or wrongly, then it's going to be
buzzing sound.
Right. There's a weird buzzy sound. But on electrics, there is no, the body of the guitar is not hollow. And so the sound is being amplified by an amp, an electric amp, right?
So you got so-called pickups, and then you have different like coil bridge pickup and whatnot, and then you can switch the settings and it all like picks up from different parts, and you have different sounds basically.
Right. For people who I have played the ukulele, right? So it is I'm going to say it's very different. Like if you gave me a guitar, I could probably noodle around and figure out a single chord.
But you would transpose those skills for sure.
Right.
I'm pretty sure you could play something because like, left hand, right hand coordination, you would have that.
Exactly. And of course the strumming is more or less the same on an acoustic guitar as on a ukulele. Do those skills though transfer over to any other instruments?
I never tried. Bass works pretty well. Because it's almost like a guitar.
How are the chords on a guitar versus a bass?
I'm not much sure about the bass, but you don't really play chords on bass that much. I mean, you can strum a little bit, but it's not like guitar where you fully press all the 6 strings and you make up the chords out of 3 and more notes.
Right. You're right. So when you're playing a bass, you usually just plucking one string?
Yeah, I mean, you can play a chord, but it wouldn't be like you would play a chord progression and make it sound like guitar. It would be a part of a solo or some kind of
so it's a very different play technique.
Yes. So you basically pick, and you don't really play with your pick. I mean, some people do, but it's mostly
using
fingers.
Your finger. You pick at the strings to create kind of a rhythm with basses. This is what I gather from watching bass players.
Correct. Wait, so I have a question.
Sure.
You played piano. Do you still touch piano at some point after you finish?
My parents still have my childhood piano.
Nice.
And they just, like last year, got it retuned because, my parents moved around a little bit and the piano was just kind of left there. And as happens with all instruments, it falls, what do you call it? Fall out of tune?
Just goes out of tune.
It goes out of tune. So you have to maintain an instrument, right? And they just got a piano guy to come. By the way, they're expensive. My mom was kind of unhappy with the price tag of the piano tuner, but they've retuned it. It is back to sounding really nice. So I have sat back down and played a little bit of my old sheet music, and man alive, am I rusty. It sounds awful.
Normal.
I mean, to be fair, I used to play every day for like an hour a day, right? And when you do that, your fingers, just based on muscle memory, you don't have to think about certain things. It just, you play and the music comes out. After, I don't know how many years that was, 12, 14, something like that.
Right.
You play and the music comes out. But I sat back down and it was a little embarrassing.
I mean, that's normal after so many years. But let me ask you, like, did you regain some of the skills? Like,
slowly.
If you were to get into it, do you still have it? The memory is still there, right?
Yeah, it's coming back.
That's amazing.
It's as you say, it's like riding a bike, right? So at first, if you haven't ridden a bike in a long time, you're a little wobbly when you get back on one, but it's not like you ever forget. And reading, if you haven't read a language in a long time, when you begin reading it again, you're really rusty, but it's not like you've forgotten it entirely.
Right,
so
right. It just comes out
slowly.
And
It's slowly.
Yeah, okay.
Have you ever put down an instrument and then picked it back up?
Yes. If I went somewhere for, I don't know, work or travel for like 2-3 months and there's no way I could have that.
Yeah, you can't bring it with you.
Right. So it was just, you get back into it and then there's like, oh, wow. What seemed to be not flawless, but like it went more smooth.
Right?
It just became like little
jerky. You're wobbly on the strings.
That's correct.
And that's just after, a few months of being away from the instrument.
Right. So I can imagine years.
I think that was like 20 years of not playing.
That's insane. But why? See, this is my question. This is what brought me to this debate. Like, why would anybody quit once you have 14 years of knowledge of this piano? Like,
right. I love the piano and I actually really love music. I think the only reason of quitting is because I couldn't take it with me.
Okay.
This giant instrument. And then, it's very hard to wind. Well, first of all, to purchase a piano is a huge space commitment.
It is.
Not just financial.
Okay.
You need a space for a decent instrument, right? And I've never lived in large houses.
Okay.
Boston is very cramped. It's not as cramped as Taipei. Taipei is even more cramped. So never had the space. And, I guess that's kind of what it is. That's why I picked up the ukulele, because I wanted
something saving.
Yeah. And I wound up buying it on my husband and I's honeymoon in Hawaii, because, you walk by the ukulele, store and it's like, souvenir?
It's the best, the most suitable place to buy a ukulele.
Right.
Okay.
So that's how that happened. So I am very interested. Since, what inspired you to pick up the guitar, though?
I have the memory very clear, actually.
Okay.
I was in Paris visiting a very good friend of mine, and we went to a dorm party or something, and there were a bunch of friends and everybody was watching these two guys jamming out on guitar. And at that point I was really like in a very good mood.
Yeah.
I was in awe. Like I was amazed.
I think we've all had that exact same experience, though, because any place you grow up, somebody in your school or somebody who lives in the neighborhood plays an instrument, and then you've kind of stood there in awe of what they can do on that very cool device. Were they playing Wonderwall?
No. That's the thing. They were, but they were jamming. That's the thing. Like they were communicating between each other, and it wasn't even like what they can do, because like that would put me off. Like, okay, I'm not going to be able to do that at any point. But how I felt about what they are doing,
it's just, oh my god, it's
that
amazing.
Was the main, like my levels of happiness probably went over theirs.
Yes.
And that's not even like, that's not possible, because they were the ones playing. But I felt like, oh my god, if I can ever feel like this just by picking up some stringy instrument, then
that's a wonderful thing, right?
Yeah.
That is kind of one of the things that music does for humans in general. I mean, that I think music is special to our species. The fact that we can create melody or something and it kind of elevates our mood to that point, right? I mean, amazing. What do you think about the theory of 10,000 hours?
Okay, 10,000 hours to master.
Are you familiar?
Something?
Right? Are you familiar with that theory? It's like if you put in 10,000 hours of work, it makes you a master at it.
I feel like it could be. It sounds okay, but like I feel like that's just like really basic baseline, some oriental number just to orientational something to have like
subjective number.
Yeah,
subjective
just to have some number, and it sounds nice, better than 9,400 or
that's
something.
True.
Because like what happens before, like there's people who will pick up and do it quicker than others.
Yeah.
So perhaps it doesn't apply to them, but there's somebody who reached 10,000, but there's still so much to learn. Like
I'm pretty sure I hit 10,000 hours playing the piano.
Wait.
Not.
Let me think about it.
Well, let's break this down.
So if you went 14 years,
I'm gonna check out my phone right now.
Let's say 14 years times. All right, that's
10,000 divided by, let's say 12, because 12 years, right?
Yes.
And then it's 833 divided by 365. So that's about 2.5 hours per day for 12 years makes 10,000 hours.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'm terrible at math. I'm going to do this again.
Same. Oh no, our math teachers are now banging their heads. But okay, but let's say you went very close to it, or you even reached it.
Right. Maybe
so like,
maybe I did.
In what? In 1/3 of your life or something. So like, let's say if you continued, like you get to 30,000, then what kind of master you have to be? That's just.
But here's also, okay, to be fair, one kind of disheartening reason why I stopped playing the piano is that there are these people that are natural musicians. Maybe they were never formally trained. They don't even know how to read sheet music, right? But if you give them a piano, they somehow make magic using this instrument, right? I was never one of those people.
Same.
So even though I may be approaching 10,000 hours on the piano, if you put fairly complicated sheet music in front of me, I can reproduce it with some modicum of, emotion and flow. But can I create my own magic using the piano? I couldn't. And that's, I think, was the most disheartening thing, that besides not being able to pick one up and carry it around, that made me drop the instrument.
But wait, let me think about this, because what I see a lot of times happen is that people who get pushed into an instrument have to follow guidelines.
Yes.
So you get very solid basis on like knowing how to reproduce something, knowing how to read music, knowing how to follow tempo and do all these like, book examples and do this. That's why I feel like this is the time of life where everybody should put it away after you're like, I don't know, 20 something, and just heavily get into playing with others.
Jam fest
And creating music. Because I feel like you have already all this basis where you can just kind of get everything you have inside, develop your improvisation skills.
That's actually a really good point. If sometime, when I was, in my early teens, we just jam fested with a few friends together, that might have been a very different musical experience. You have a really good point.
Because like, I feel like now at my stage of life, I feel like I'm fairly creative person, but my skills cannot match that creativity. And everybody will be like, okay, so you're creative, so you should know how to solo and do like come up with a song. But like, if you don't have the skills, your creativity will get pulled down, and you're not. Those two have to go hand
in hand together.
Yes.
Like, well, if you apply these same ideas to English, which I taught for 12 years, a lot of the kids, guys, listeners, I have to explain something about the way that English is taught. Most things are taught here in Taiwan, culturally speaking. It's like rote memorization. You have to follow these formulas in order to learn.
Army drills.
Yes, it's like army drills. It's like memorizing times tables. If kids are being creative with their writing, the majority of the time, their school teachers would beat it out of them. They're like, no, this doesn't follow the format that you're supposed to follow.
Right.
As an English teacher, I hated that, because I was trying to encourage creativity when using the language. Once you have the basic rules, go see what you can do with it. Write me some stories that are really, really cool, right? So I think if you apply those ideas to music learning, you have a very good point. I never thought about it that way until now.
Because like music just might be another kind of language, So
true.
like exactly, you get the guidelines, and now you go and experiment. It might not be correct, but if it sounds good, if it makes somehow if you communicate the essence and express yourself somehow, it's still valid,
Very.
Just sit down and like be like, okay, now I'm gonna improvise and see what sounds good. And in the first maybe, I don't know, weeks or months, it will just not be as good, but then at some point you just sit down and you're like, oh my god, I can create this out of nowhere, out of nothing, out of thin air.
Right.
Then you
maybe just go on YouTube and find some, jazz musicians making random music and try to play along with them and stuff.
There are even like simple principles or guidelines that they give to like improve your little creative side of you,
That's cool.
Okay, wait, so question, keyboard, no? If piano, no. Not possible.
I never really thought about it, because I never really noodled around on a keyboard very much at all. I've only recently, because TikTok, and everyone's exposed to social media now. Yep. We're just watching people, basically mimic or add music to cats' videos or whatever. Have I seen the magic of a keyboard and, synth? They are very cool, because I think I have to learn to play one not expecting the piano out of it. Does that make sense?
Yes, but that's the point. It's not a piano.
It's not a piano.
It can get very not very, but it can go close to piano. But you have so many
other options,
sounds,
right?
And that's the whole point of it, because you can make like the 80s nice music sound.
Music, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All the way up to just pre-recording very weird sound effects.
You can play organ in the church, something. That's not piano. Can't do that. Obviously, it's not a replacement for piano, but I feel like if you want to experiment more and use what you have, I feel like keyboard is the perfect way to just open all those doors. And plus you have like ukulele skills, so you can just make a track just out of your
myself.
Yeah. And feature two instruments. Even sing perhaps.
To be fair, okay, the office at RTI has several musicians in it. Chris Gorin plays the guitar. Oh no, Tomasz is gone because he played the bass.
Okay.
That would have been almost a band, right? We got 2 guitars, a bass, almost a bass.
Does he still live in Taipei?
Yeah, he's still here.
Okay.
He's still here. If I brushed up my piano/keyboard, then it would be a band. We just need a drummer.
I'm pretty sure we could find a drummer for a cool team like that.
Right. But today, I assume it's been many years since college. Are you still playing the guitar?
Yes.
Excellent.
Almost daily.
Yay. What are your habits?
My habits.
Your magical musical habits.
My magical habits. I mean, the one thing I wish I told myself earlier is that obviously theory and knowing all of this is very important, like the scales and all that. But I feel like playing is the most important thing. Because like I would spend a lot of time going through scales and trying to understand like modes and, you know, like different things like that. But then somebody would say like, okay, so play something. I would just be like, all right, I know how it should be. But then I realized, okay, that's what you have to do. Like not necessarily know every kind of note and music and all. And that's what many guitarists also did before. Like none of them or very few of them could read music or could even do anything with theory.
But they could play something.
But they could. It's just they have a track and they can play something that sounds good over it. Yeah. And I feel like that's the whole point. It sounds good and it is good, you know.
So that's our message today, I think, listeners. I think you got to play and you have to
play.
Yeah, it's not about the theory so much as just learning to express.
Although theory is very important, so don't skip that part. But don't quit your instrument, right? I feel like that's
don't quit. Yeah, I think that's good. Thank you so much for geeking out with me, Phil.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thanks listeners for tuning in to Radio Taiwan International. I'm Michelle Chang, and we'll be back next Thursday with another episode of Geek Out.
Bye-bye.